You don't think to consume first, right? Because African Americans in the United States are some of the largest consumers, even though we only make up 13% of the population. A lot of immigrants, it doesn't matter where you come from a collectivist culture first. America is so unique because black people in America are the only people in the world born into capitalism. Other people come from some collectivist culture, some socialist culture, and they get to reap the benefits of capitalism from the inside out. Whereas we're unique because we're born in it. It was shaped around us. When you have this opportunity to see America from the outside in, I'll give you the example. My mother's side of the family be like, oh, why so many of your father's people will get a studio apartment, be six of them living in there? I say, well, they come from a collectivist culture. Within 5 to 10 years, they'll probably all be homeowners. The same negative stereotypes would apply on my mother's side of the family from my father's side. Oh, why have black people been in America for so long, but their situation hasn't changed much? It's like, well, capitalism, slavery, we were born inside a system that perpetuated it and keeps people down. You reap the benefits from coming into it, but being born into it, you don't get to reap the benefits from it necessarily as easily. The impact it had on me was empathy. It taught me how to explain things to people who don't have a profound understanding of it. And that led into my music, where sometimes it felt like a burden to have to explain things to people who don't come from different cultures because I was born into two cultures. So I was constantly explaining to my mom beliefs in Islam, what it means to be an immigrant and what it means to come from Africa. And I was constantly explaining to my father and my father's people Christianity in the West and what it means to be Black American, what it means to be born in a system of white supremacy, the effects of that, and trying to create empathy and understanding. That definitely affected who I am. It affected how I write. It affected the music that I make. It affects how I move through the world.
Now, can you dig it?
Hell no, nigga. I can't dig it. Now, who you supposed to be?
Oh, that's Black Dynamite.
I ain't asked you, nigga. Shut up.
I said I'm never coming back again. Next, I stepped away from the mirror. I got my mind made up now, 'cause I can see the future much clearer. What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Bear with me on this one. There's this thing where people go, Black America, you know, overspending. And, we are the biggest consumers in America. But it's really not true. Okay. So I'm going to just do it by numbers. So the GDP is like $30 trillion, right? Consumer spending is 70% of the GDP, which is like close to $21 trillion. So it's like 20.77 or something like that. Now, when you look at consumer spending amongst groups, if you Google it, and and it's not necessarily, it doesn't have this year per se, but if you Google it, it'll say that white America, $12.2 trillion is spending, right? Black America, 2 trillion. Hispanic America, 3 trillion. Asians, it should be like 1.6 at this particular point. So when it comes to, you know, being the largest consumers, if we're 13% of the population, you know, out of that 20 point, 20.77 trillion dollars of consumer spending that's part of the GDP, we're really at like, we're not even at 10%. Because 10% would be 2.07 or 2.7. It's not 27, but 2.07. So we hovering around close to 10%. You get what I'm saying? So this idea that Black America is spending and spending and spending. So, count it up. 12.2 plus 3, 15.2 plus 2, 17.2, plus, let's just say 1.6 would be 18.8. So it's like another, let's just say 2 trillion out there for groups. So you got to add um, Muslim community. You got to add Native Americans. You got to add Samoans. Yeah, you know, because sometimes Pacific Islanders aren't necessarily considered Asian. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. It's just weird. But you got to add the others. You get what I mean? So that's part of the GDP and the consumer spending. And the reason I gotta I bring this discussion because we play this game where black people spending and spending and spending. If we were spending so much money, because you see people, you see black people in expensive stuff. That's true. That's true. But we don't. But the vast majority of our debt in America is really student loan debt. It's not credit card debt, like just from overspending. It's not that. See, that's where people get it twisted. We're not the ones just in mass buying $100,000 cars. We're not the ones out here buying luxury watches and like we're not doing that. You get what I'm saying? We don't really we're not really overspending like people think. Yes, people can go to a concert, go to an event. Because if that was the case, we talked about the Carnival cruises not that long ago, right? They lowered the price, and black people got on the cruise. People talk about flying Spirit Airlines because of the cheap tickets. You know, people are talking about that's how people used to treat Southwest because of the cheap tickets, the deals, the vacation spots. But this idea, oh man, black America just you're just wasting money. No, it's not. That's not what's going on. That's not what's going on. What you have is a bunch of people in Black America who are taking care of themselves. Instead of having, you have less household income and more individual income. More head of household incomes, which means you're the one running everything. In the sense of it's you and you taking care of whoever's in the house. Like that's what that is. But this idea that we just out here frivolous with money, we ain't got it like that. Not in mass. But the stereotype is the problem because there's always this stereotype that let's overlook the reality and just blame Black Americans. Oh, we're not doing what other groups do because other groups they sit together six and seven in one house and then they all buy a house. And well, if that means if they all buy a house at the end of that, then they're all taking care of one household at the end of the day. And they're gonna have bills. Them 6, 7 people that you swear, 5, 6, 7 people. That means 5, 6, 7 houses. That means their person's taking care of their house. They're taking care of the mortgage, the bills, yada, the upkeep, yada, yada, yada. They were all in one house saving up at one time. These people ain't buying these houses cash. Let's stop playing this game. Let's stop playing that game where, oh yeah, people just sat in the house, sat in an apartment for 6, 7 years and they just stacked their money and they just bought a $300,000 house. Because that's around the average in America. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. People made enough money to make a down payment. That's what happened. So this overdoing it when it comes to um, Black America and spending and we do this and we do that and other groups do this and other groups do that. Stop it. Stop it. Because what we don't say is what other groups wind up doing at the end of the day is what Black America does. You become the financial patriarch or matriarch for a group of people. And then they get on their feet and leave. That's what happens. That's all that really happens. But we go, oh man, black people out here buying Chargers and Challengers and you know Gucci belts and Gucci shades and just wasting money, just going out and eating and partying and da 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 da. We don't, you don't think of black people when it comes to fine dining and just wasting hundreds of dollars on an average meal. You don't think of black people when you think about that. You don't think of black people in these. Well, sometimes you think of black people when it comes to partying. It depends, but but these huge, but these parties where there's a lot of stuff going on, that's not really us. It's not really us. When it comes to these people buying all these expensive clothes, um, mm, we buying t-shirts and polo shirts and jeans. These people buying suits and shoes and belts and the $500, you know, dress shirts and undershirts. But we just kind of act like, oh well, let's just say black people are just messing up financially. That's not the case, man. I just think sometimes y'all overdo it, and y'all overdo it a lot. Like the stereotype has to be over the moon, and yeah, yeah. I'm intellectual, and black people aren't. Okay, all right. But as I said in the beginning, just crunch the numbers. 13% of the population, our consumer spending or spending power is $2 trillion. Consumer spending in America from the GDP is 20 trillion point 770 billion. So 20 trillion point 77. With 13% of the population, we're not 13% of the spending. We're under that. So, I'm gonna just leave it at that. Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.